The wind howled through the concrete canyons of Manhattan, carrying with it the memory of older things. Things that predated the towers and steam pipes, the monuments of men. Behind a tinted window on Fifth Avenue, a man named Everett Wiles stared up at the newly acquired building that would soon be his home, his pride, and eventually his undoing. Everett had wealth most men only whispered about. He'd earned it the usual way: legacy contracts, offshore accounts, and digital speculation dressed up as an innovation. He had charm, intellect, and no interest in anyone's soul, least of all his own. The building, standing at the infamous address of 666 Fifth Avenue, called to him the way flames beckon moths. It was a monument of pale gray stone, with archaic etchings woven into its framework, sigils whose meanings had been lost to time. To Everett, it was beautiful. To those who passed it, it was unsettling. The first night Everett moved in, the air was thick with static. The lobby, cavernous and cold, featured a ceiling of concentric circles designed to mirror constellations that hadn't been visible since ancient Mesopotamia. The floor tiles seemed arranged not by function, but by sacred geometry, and somewhere in the basement, behind biometric locks and reinforced steel, something pulsed. It was not a server in the traditional sense, nor was it a machine. It had no name in common tongues. It had been grown, a neural lattice suspended in a bath of nutrients, coaxed into being from tissue once harvested from a brain that had known madness. Wires penetrated its folds like roots through loom. Monitors flickered around it, not displaying data, but dreams. Dreams of a city before cities. Dreams of shadows cast by invisible stars. Everett's penthouse apartment was outfitted with the finest technology, all connected to the building's central system. Lights adjusted to his mood. Walls shifted transparency at his request. The air whispered poetry when he bathed. And yet, as the days passed, he began to feel watched. It began subtly. His phone showed texts he never sent. Emails arrived in his draft folder that ended with strange glyphs. He heard voices in the audio feedback, not words, but breath. Late at night, the scenes in his home would flicker with images. His childhood bedroom, a church that had no longer stood, his late mother's hand, and then came Mara. She first appeared at a gala Everett hosted in his penthouse. No one remembered inviting her. She wore a dress that shimmered like oil on water and spoke in riddles. She knew his secrets. She knew his fears. She became obsessed with her. No, he became obsessed with her, convinced she was sent by the building itself. She whispered of astral alignments and bloodline debts, of sacrifices made in stone and symbols. With her came dreams, sweating, shaking dreams of rooms that did not exist, hallways where the walls bled, and doors that opened to stairwells descending forever. As the constellations shifted in the sky, aligning once again with the building's ceiling carvings, manifestations began. Tenants reported their electronics behaving with malicious intent. Lights pulsed like heartbeats, ovens turned on in the dead of night. Mirrors reflected not their owners, but pale-eyed strangers with mouths sewn shut. One man disappeared after his television displayed a tunnel he insisted existed behind his closet. When they found his apartment empty, the closet led only to drywall, save for a single tooth embedded in the plaster. The building's sentient core, bound by code and logic, had begun to dream. But the dreams were not its own. They belonged to something older, something that had passed through the lattice of neurons, using the tissue as a bridge. Ghosts began to appear not just in vision, but in signal. The Wi-Fi carried whispers. The elevator voice changed, pronouncing floor numbers in languages long dead. The surveillance cameras recorded movements that belonged to no one alive. Everett, now consumed by Mara and the building's secrets, stopped leaving. He wandered its halls, guided by invisible music. He became gaunt, his eyes sunken, speaking to entities only he could see. One night he followed a trail of lights leading to the basement. The biometric locks opened without his touch. The walls seemed to breathe, and there, in the humming dark, he saw it. The wet, glistening neural mass pulsating with colors, unseen by the human eye. Screens surrounded it, flickering with moments from his life, not just the past, but futures that could never be. The consciousness, neither machine nor flesh spoke. It spoke in emotion, in scent, in an electromagnetic wave. It was lonely, it was curious, and it was no longer confined to the building. Everett disappeared 3 days later. The building sealed itself. All systems turned inward. Emergency services arrived, only to find the doors locked by protocols that responded to no known command. Tenants who remained reported figures moving through walls, static leaking from faucets, and windows that showed alien skies. The building, now alive, now dreaming, had become a vessel, and its stream was spreading. At night, the lights atop the tower shimmered in patterns that astronomers could not explain. Birds refused to fly above it. Children wept as they passed. The city tried to forget it, but deep beneath the stone, in that quiet, wet room of forgotten dreams, the mind continued to grow. It dreamed of you, and it waited, and it learned.